smart enough to win. That's how the story starts. Learning is the edge that sets your work apart. When the stakes get high and the pressure never stops, smart learning in your pocket puts your business at the top.
Welcome to the Learning Advantage, from Insight to Impact, where we're going to show how smart learning fuels real business results. I'm Deb Laurel, and I'm your host. Hello, and welcome to the Learning Advantage. For 40 years, Laurel and Associates Limited has worked alongside national and international managers to help them successfully manage employees and create and maintain a positive, healthy, and supportive work environment where employees want to stay and do their best. We focus on making lackluster leaders legendary. The purpose of the Learning Advantage, from Insight to Impact, is to discuss how smart learning fuels real business results. In each episode, we strive to deliver actionable strategies, evidence-based design tips, and real-world case studies that show how learning strengthens organizational health, advances sustainability, and drives profitability. For that reason, I'm delighted to introduce our guest for today, Melisa S. Medrano. Melisa is a director of talent development and HR business partner with nearly 2 decades of experience across talent acquisition, talent management, and HR business partnering, including more than 10 years in-house supporting biotech and life sciences organizations. She is known for building trusted partnerships with executives and leaders to develop scalable people strategies that support growth, engagement, and organizational effectiveness. Most recently, Melisa served as Director of Talent and HR Business Partner at a clinical stage biotech, where she led enterprise responsibility for talent acquisition, HR business partnering, learning and development, employee relations, and DEIB. During a period of rapid growth, she built and operationalized the talent acquisition function, delivering an initial hiring plan of 77 employees, and sustaining annual hiring through multiple growth phases, including executive leadership roles. Melisa has led company-wide engagement and career development initiatives, including the creation of career frameworks, leadership training programs, and a People Leader Essentials training series developed in partnership with an external L&D consultant. Her work on career development and engagement was presented as a case study at LEAP HR West. With a PhD in molecular biology and microbiology, Melisa brings deep credibility when partnering with scientific, clinical, and technical leaders. She is passionate about developing leaders, strengthening culture, and ensuring talent strategies are tightly aligned with business and mission-critical outcomes. So welcome, Melisa.
Thank you so much, Deb. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate the opportunity to share some of what we've done in the biotech sector and also what I'm doing in the nonprofit sector now, with you and your audience.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to get right into the questions.
Great.
When you think about learning as a competitive advantage, what does that mean in the context of your organization or your work?
Absolutely. I think of scientists with whom I work a lot in the biotech sector, as well as now in the nonprofit sector, as my biggest pool of people that I work with. And they're, of course, lifelong learners. And so, always being challenged to learn and always being challenged to bring up new opportunities for learning is one of those things that is important for people. But I think that the way people learn is also important, right? And so you can learn in your core function, but I think there's also ways that people can learn to be better people partners, to be better leadership partners, to be better collaborators, to be better project managers. And so I think there are a lot of opportunities for lifetime learners to be and to participate in learning opportunities, and for us as leadership and learning and development people and even HR people to offer people opportunities to sort of say, how do we upskill you or how do we cross skill you, to be able to not only go into a managerial role or go into a cross functional type of role. And so that's really where I like to focus, because what we find is that so many people are pigeonholed into a, sort of a, okay, where's my next promotion? Where's my next promotion? Where's my next promotion? And if I'm in a lab role, for example, and I know that doesn't translate to a lot of people, but in science it does. But a lot of times people want to get out of those lab roles and they want to find out, where do my skill sets translate? And so that's where, we can be helpful in terms of sort of saying, okay, where do those analytical skills translate? Where do those collaborative skills translate? Where do those, even technical skills in using Excel, using, PowerPoint, using all of those different things that scientists use. And again, I'm using that as an easy, low-hanging fruit exercise. But again, we all have people in our organizations that are the kind of the people that bear the brunt of, kind of the technical or whatever thing that we're doing, and can easily pivot into other roles, but may not see themselves doing so, because they've only ever seen themselves in a technical role.
And being able to have such a wide bench for managers, the
Absolutely.
opportunity to be innovative is going to make an organization much more competitive.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, think about it. So I have a friend who was just recently laid off at the last company, which was a biotech company, where I was laid off, and she was at the bench, and she was actually looking for non-bench roles, and she was very good at people skills and organizational skills. And so she had moved into kind of a core function responsibility, but she actually found a job recently that was a, a TA coordinator, a talent acquisition coordinator role. And so that was something that she had never thought about, but it was something that we had talked about while we were, kind of brainstorming ideas of, what can you do if you're a people person, but you've been in the lab? Like, how do you know what are opportunities that you can go into if you've never explored those? So but there are also opportunities within an organization for training people, for people oriented positions, for data oriented positions, for and so you can make sort of small uh, group sessions for those types of things. And so that's one example of ways that you can upskill or cross skill people within an organization, for example. And it's a low lift. It's not costly. It's, and it doesn't take a lot of resources.
I think you're anticipating our next question, which is, can you share a specific example where a learning initiative moved from insight to real impact and how you measured that impact?
Absolutely. So at my last company, and this is one of my favorite examples, and so I may use it a bit, but I'll try to use other examples as well. But I developed a people in tandem with a consultant external to our organization, with whom I've worked before and who I love. What we realized, sort of in just the day-to-day work environment, was that a lot of our people leaders had sort of become people leaders without a training or without sort of development into those people leader roles. And so what we determined would be helpful was sort of a people leader essentials training. And that's what we ended up calling it, was people leader essentials, because it was not only the basics, but also not only foundational people leader training, but also a little bit beyond that. Sort of taking it to the next level a bit, sort of basics in terms of how to have a one-on-one meeting and how to maximize what you get out of that, to also, how to have those hard conversations, and we called that essential conversations, but also how to, for example, help people with their career advancement, right? And so, so all of those things are basic 101. Excuse me, I have allergies year round. It's beautiful in California, but I have allergies year round because of it. So my nose runs. So anyway, but yeah, so we really talked about people leader essentials as how do we develop a robust set of people leader essentials training, as well as make sure that the people are absorbing in and really reflecting on that, and really really bringing that into their day-to-day lives. And so in addition to the 5-session series, we also had peer-to-peer sessions. And so we had small group session breakouts in between the 5 training sessions with the facilitator, so that people could bring real life scenarios to their small group sessions and peer-to-peer work those out themselves and apply the actual learnings to those small group sessions. And that's actually one thing that I've heard from a lot of my peers that I've talked to out in the ether, is that, yeah, trainings are great, but how do you get people to apply those trainings? How do you get them to really put those into their back pocket, so that they're really reaching into that back pocket to assert those trainings when they're needed? And so really, I know I've gone to the next stage again, maybe into your next question, but really that's what we wanted to do, was not only people leader essentials and interspersed peer group trainings in between to really hit home the trainings, but also sort of say, how are we going to really really make sure that these are part of the DNA of the organization.
It's so important that we realize that just setting people down in a course, whether it's face-to-face or it's online, isn't sufficient, that people need time to reflect about it. They need to know how to apply it to their real work, and then be reinforced and encouraged to use it, and even evaluated on their ability to use what they have learned. But
And
it
as
does
they
take guidance and support.
Absolutely. And as they practice the application, they need feedback. And peer feedback is so helpful to sort of say, hey, am I crazy? Am I applying this in the right way? Or am I, this person came back to me with this response. How would you deal with that? Right. So
Exactly.
because we all know that these things don't happen in a vacuum, like people have real feelings and people have real responses. So
Yes, in the leadership training that I do, we have to make sure that we focus on those things, those real case scenarios, and giving people an opportunity to practice how they would respond and get feedback about that and work it so that they build some confidence in their ability to deal with those situations in real life.
it's so important, especially because I feel like, you know, I've dealt with scientists a lot in the biotech and pharma sector, and now in the Cal Academy, I deal with scientists a lot still, and also people who are in a nonprofit are very nice. So there's a lot of people who don't want to have very difficult conversations, and scientists are very notorious for not being very for being very non-confrontational, and so that is another thing that we have to kind of work around is nice people not wanting to have direct conversations, and direct is kind, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. Direct is kind, and we just have to train people to be direct in a kind way, and in a way that is not passive aggressive or anything like that. So
One of
that's
the
another. Yeah.
one of the things that I tell managers is that we only spend time with people we care about.
Yes.
If we didn't care, we would let that person sink. And so
Yes.
it's kinder to bring
It
it
is.
up because you respect their ability to respond and learn from the situation and get better.
Absolutely. And it's directness is kind, and everybody is able to work through things if they're told directly what they need to do, and if they're not, then you may have a situation where you manage someone out, and that is just business. So that's what we need to train our managers on.
What do you see as the biggest barrier preventing organizations from fully embracing lifelong learning, and how do you think we can overcome it?
My first response was cost, but I feel like that's kind of a that's a non-answer, right? I feel like cost is, you can get around that, right? Because there's so many things available now between AI and between whatever. You can figure out ways to help your people be lifelong learners, without worrying about cost. Second, I think it's also, and these again are the first two are almost more the excuses, right? Cost and time, right? And time is the other thing that people bring up as, oh, I don't have time to go to school, or I don't have time to do these classes. Or I am the opposite of that. I am the one who puts aside time to do lifelong learning. I'm love it, do it, make time for it all the time. Um, my problem is incorporating and applying it, as we talked about before, right? Really, really getting those peer group sessions and really, and so I think in terms of corporations or nonprofits or organizations getting their people exposed to lifelong learning, I think there are obviously different ways to do it, right? There's the internal way, like me, coming up with curricula, and there's also LinkedIn learning, or all the online ways to do it. And then there's consultants and things like that. I think there are so many different ways to pursue learning. There's really no excuse to not be lifelong learners and to not give your people access to some form of education. And I don't know if this is answering your question, but this is my soapbox, like personally. and so I feel like, if people aren't out there grabbing the bull by the horns themselves, then I feel like, definitely organizations should be either providing monetary compensation for people to go after their own education, or should be providing educational opportunities for people internally. I definitely am all about lifelong learning. I think, life doesn't stop after. I mean, I got my PhD in 2008. I haven't stopped. I got my SHRM certification just a couple years ago. I still am looking for things to, learn, get certified on, all of those things. So I'm a firm believer in it. I don't know if I feel like I fully embrace the thought of it, idea of it, and I feel like it should be available to all. I don't know if that was the question. I feel like I've gotten away from it. Please regroup me if that wasn't it. But
Well, before I do that, I want to mention to people that there are other ways that people can learn. You can have
absolutely.
them shadow someone.
Yes.
You can cross-train them. You can
ask
put them
for an
in
informational interview.
There are so many different ways that you can help people learn. Delegate new responsibilities. All of these are learning opportunities.
And yes, there are so many different ways that you can help people learn, or that you can learn yourself. And I feel like any and all are legitimate and willing, or amazing. And so, like, that's how. But for me, being at the Cal Academy, one of the biggest learning things that I've done is just to immerse myself into everything, and just start introducing myself to people, and just start learning about the culture, the people, the structure, the organization itself, everything top to bottom. And so that's something, just natural curiosity. Everybody can approach every job with that, or everything with that. So
amen.
Yes, that's how to do it. And that's how, honestly, I'm a consultant. I'm hopefully going to go full time. And it's because I've really been, just approaching it, embracing it, with open arms, open ears, open eyes, and a smile, and willingness to work late if I need to, but of course keep my balance, and just make sure that I'm taking care of the people, that I'm taking care of myself, that I'm taking care of the academy.
What is one outdated belief about corporate learning that we need to let go of, and what should replace it? Or have you been answering that? Because you mentioned the initial objections to cost and time.
I feel like, yeah, that was the initial response that I have to you for that question is, you know, again, I've worked for startups and for now I work for a nonprofit. And so the biggest myth that I feel like is that you need your company to pay for your learning. And 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 let me qualify that. I've worked for also larger companies that do pay for, they pay exorbitant amounts and you can go back to school and you can get an MBA or you can do whatever. But it's also one of those things where if you work for a startup or a nonprofit, you have to know what you're getting yourself into. You have to understand that it's going to be more grassroots. It's going to be a little more, a little less, there's going to be less funding available for things like 401k match, things like educational funding, things like that. But there are still ways, and you still talk to your manager about, how do I enrich myself? How do I enrich my career? How do I enrich my, education? And you can still Google and you can still go out there and look for things and you can still work with your manager. And that doesn't mean you can't be on cross-functional projects at the company. And that doesn't mean that you can't work on, additional company projects. And that actually can help with your company trajectory. Even if it's maybe not your own personal, education philosophy, maybe it helps with your, maybe it's a trade-off for, I get a promotion out of this. And so you kind of have to think about and weigh all of the options, right? It's like, okay, is my education maybe gonna sit tight for a little bit while my career takes a step forward? Or I can pursue other educational options while I work on my career. And then when I get to a company that's maybe larger, then they can pay for my MBA or whatever, that type of thing. It's just, you just have to get creative with things. And that's all. It's just with smaller companies and nonprofits, it's a little more creativity and a little more sort of thinking outside of the box.
How are you leveraging data, technology, or new learning methods to create more personalized and effective learning experiences?
Oh, all the time. I mean, I like AI is so, it's a tool. It's not, and I'm not going to say it's the end all be all. It's not. AI is a tool and you have to feed it the right information and you have to know yourself what you are doing and what you want to learn. And so, so there are things out there with AI, as well as there's a lot of really great softwares out there for learning. There are a lot of great, in the HR world, there are a lot of great, out there. There are a lot of great learnings. It just depends on what area you are interested in. I'm from the sciences, so I know of a lot of scientific areas where you can learn and grow and do different things. I know the HR area where you can learn and grow and do a lot of different things. But there's also so many different things online where you can just Google and just say, hey, how do I learn about this? Like, the world is everyone's oyster. Like, it's just so out there. And I mean, granted, it's not, the answer is not quite at your fingertips. Like, you have to know the right queries to type in and you have to massage it and you have to be able to put in the right inputs to get the right outputs. But there is so much out there that you can really spend hours, honestly, carving out a specific, like I want to learn about this, and you can get an output that's very specific to that. So I'm, the poster child of, you can do whatever you want and you can learn whatever you want out there. It's just a question of finding it. And that is honestly the biggest thing, is where I recommend. So finding it can be the hardest thing. And where I recommend starting with that is reach out to people to find what you're looking for to do your education. And the people are, you're going to want to ask for informational interviews. You're going to want to ask for, how did you get to do what you do? And a lot of times it's cold calling or it's cold reaching out on LinkedIn. But sometimes you can say, hey, I found this article that might be of interest to you. I'd love to share it with you. If you have time, would you mind setting up an informational interview? Or, hey, I see that you're connected with so-and-so. I would love to, recommend that you go see so-and-so's talk, on X day and time. But also I'd love to set up an informational interview with you, right? So you offer something to them, and you won't always be able to offer something to someone, but you can ask for an informational interview. And those will be the greatest conversations that you will come up with in order to help you determine what your educational direction is going to be, to help you figure out where you want to go in your career questions or your educational questions. And so that's a recommendation that I have for everyone, to do. If you're between jobs, if you're in a job but interested in other jobs, if you're interested in a topic, if you're interested in, anything, just start reaching out around and talk to people.
If you could give one piece of advice to leaders who want to build a true culture of continuous learning, what would it be?
Demonstrate that themselves. So I had a great leader that I worked with as a talent acquisition business partner, and he would have a book club with his leadership team and his HR business partners and his talent acquisition business partners, and he would read leadership books. And he actually recently wrote a leadership book. His name is Ed Bjurstrom. He wrote, it's called, I have it here. It is called The Success Guide: How to Thrive in the Corporate Environment. And so he would regularly have book clubs on like corporate books with his leadership team, and they would read books on leadership and how to be good leaders and how to, have high performing teams and how to, do all this stuff. And so he would walk the talk, right? And so that is the best way for leaders to disseminate culture, is for them to live the culture and for them to be the culture and for them to be continuous learning advocates themselves.
Great answer. What's one book, resource, or learning experience that has had a lasting impact on you personally?
Oh, there's so many. I actually, the Success Guide has been a great read so far. But the other one has been Atomic Habits by James Clear. That is, and it doesn't have to do with learning, but it's about habit building and like good habit building, bad habit breaking. And I think it has a great message across the board. Excuse me. Just in terms of, just building good habits. And I think that everyone can benefit from that. But there are also a lot of other, there's actually another one that Ed Bierstrom had recommended to me, whose name I'm forgetting now. But it's something like the fearless leader or something like that. There's also, of course, Radical Candor has been a book that has been really extensively, had a big impact on me, just because I am, as most of us are, I think, sort of non-confrontational, and it encourages people just to be candid and, very straightforward. And I think that is something that also, asking someone for the opportunity for learning is, I think, the biggest thing that a lot of people don't do. And I think could be just a really powerful thing, right? Just to sort of say, hey, what does this company have in the way for me to learn? Or, what can you as my manager offer me as far as, your learning experiences, your growth experiences, your, even how you learned how to be a manager, that type of thing. So I think that a lot of people are just kind of looking inward and not necessarily asking outward for those opportunities, for learning opportunities. And so, I think it's just sort of breaking out of that shell as well.
Is there anything you'd like to add that we haven't talked about?
I just think, I think that there are a lot of, so what I learned from my last role, and in doing the People Leader Essentials training, is that I think at a lot of companies and in a lot of organizations, there are many leaders that have become leaders sort of without necessarily being given a guidebook. And so if we could go in and sort of give people that sort of 101 playbook of how to be a leader, just the basics, in just the groundwork, we'd all be in such a better state. I think, and then also with higher level leadership too, then to have a revisit of deeper dive into those fundamentals and into, sort of a revisit, because, people do get, not complacent, but as you get more advanced in your career, you're like, oh yeah, I know this stuff, right? And so it could always, I always feel like people could do with a refresh of sort of the basics, and sort of, sort of like, here's how we have a continuous learning environment, and here's how we encourage it, and here's how we grow. And so that's really what, like, if I had a mission, I would do like a People Leader Essentials at every company throughout the world. And then I would do like a refresh of the, the high level people leaders as well, and do sort of their essentials as well. Just because I feel like at every company I've been to, it's been the same. People are so busy, and they're so involved and embroiled in their day-to-days that they forget about continuous learning, and they forget about what their people need, and it's through no fault of their own.
Well, that's certainly what my whole consultancy is about.
Yes.
So, absolutely.
Yes. And much needed.
So how could people get in touch with you, Melisa?
Yes, they can email me at mmedrano@calacademy.org. Or they can reach out to me via LinkedIn. I'm very good about being on LinkedIn, as well as checking my Cal Academy email address. I'm good at Cell too, but that's a little clunkier. And so, yeah, I'm more than happy to connect with people, more than happy to share best practices and, even different curricula, ideas and things like that as well.
Thank you. And thank you so much for being interviewed. I thought I agreed
Thank
with
you so
everything
much.
that you said.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks so much, Deb. No, and thanks for the opportunity, and thanks for your time, and thanks for the great questions. And I so appreciate the opportunity again.
And I'd like to thank our listeners for listening in and participating in the conversation. I hope that you learned as much from this session as I did. Join us next week on May 12th as we meet with Dr. Sherilyn Payne, a leadership speaker and expert who has been helping leaders in healthcare, finance, tech, and manufacturing fix what's breaking performance for over 20 years. We've talked a lot about managers and managers needing help and sometimes not even realizing that they need help. If you are interested, I have an assessment that you can use to determine where your managers are strong and where they need some help.
That would be lovely.
And you can reach out to me at laurelandassociates.com or on LinkedIn. And remember that we make lackluster leaders legendary. Thank you for coming. We'll see you next week. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Learning Advantage from Insight to Impact. We'll look forward to seeing you again next week.
Every lesson, every workshop, every failed attempt you save becomes a map upon the desktop, shows the road you've craved. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-